Hey Josh, last episode we asked the question, what is real life? A question so godforsakenly nebulous that we could do an entire series on just that. So we're going to. Roll the credits.
Ready?
As I said before the intro, asking the question, what is real life, is a nebulous one, and it has nearly as many answers to each version of the question, well, as it has versions of the question. But before we begin to peel those open, I'm required by law to make the obligatory self-righteous comment about how the damn young people are lazy, good-for-nothing ingrates who spend 18 hours a day with their faces buried in their cell phones and wouldn't know real life or real struggle if it smacked them in the face. But it's also the time where I point out that most people throughout human history had their faces buried in something else for 18 hours a day. A potato field, because most people throughout human history were either slaves, serfs, or subjects, not to mention that every damn one of them was Catholic or else. Excuse me, Protestant or else. Oh wait, Catholic again. You know what? Who gives a shit which version of the Holy Book we're looking at? We aren't even reading the damn thing because throughout most of human history, humans were completely illiterate. Yeah, seriously, you think that that's bad? Just wait until you find out that the Catholics intentionally kept people from learning how to read for fear that they would actually read the book they could burn alive for disobeying, for fear that they would ask questions that the priests didn't have answers to. I know, right? But today's youth are not just literate, they are completely and utterly culpable for their own success in life. They now have access to metric tons of information, all of which they have to either sift through or risk disregarding to their detriment. They are expected to make precisely who they are or aren't, and have no one else to blame but themselves for being a failure or a success. But 100 years ago, success wasn't even an option. You were either getting stuffed into a factory, or stuffed into a trench for a world war, which is actually marginally better than your previous choice between a factory or another factory. And if you think I'm exaggerating, that's not only major reasons behind Marxism, but precisely why it caught on like wildfire. Dude, I need to call Alex up and see if he can make me like a Marxism jingle for every time I mention it. But even as bad as life was during the industrial age, at least you were a mindless extension of some factory owner's machine, instead of a mindless extension of some lord or nobleman's potato harvesting slave trade. And even if you factor in the gross human rights abuses on the part of the nobility, of which whose toolkit included ethnic cleansing, genocide, torture, public executions, all very creatively designed, wantonly dished out and enforced by what equates to the inbreeding version of Manifest Destiny, one may still make the case that this was still better than the majority of human life prior to serfdom, because back then, life entirely consisted of migratory patterns chasing slightly warmer temperatures or escaping velociraptors, and the height of medical knowledge was sacrificing virgins to a special dance. Well, you all also had genocide to worry about because Neanderthals did that too. Dude, I think a major point of my vlog is going to be that genocide is like our only thing that we do well as a species. You know, this kind of makes you think differently about when one of your idiot friends says it could always be worse. Or when your grandparents say, well, back in my day, trust me on this, life pretty much always kind of blew. This may be the only time in human history where any group of people actually enjoyed the premise of being alive. So yes, things could always be worse, and they always were up until this very moment. At least in the Western world. Okay, basically only the Western world. Okay, at the expense of the rest of the world. Okay, side note. Even though I've basically said everything to the contrary, my point with this series isn't to discuss how much life sucked compared to today. It's to discuss what our natural state of human existence actually is, and inch into suggesting that such a thing doesn't necessarily exist, unless you count malleability as an intrinsic purpose. But if you were, say, an alien from the Pleiades trying to analyze our planet from afar, what would you say is our species' natural state? Besides genocide. I mean, really, our species is remarkably good at not only cheating death, but figuring out creative ways to surpass even the most trivial aspects of the natural order. Which is pretty funny when you consider that we're pretty much bad at everything else. Take the process of giving birth. Besides being incredibly painful for women, it was often deadly for either the mother or the child or both. But instead of us just accepting that as a fact, we invented the C-section. The same thing could be said for our body's absolutely horrible defenses against diseases, and yet antibiotics and vaccines, which we completely disregard for whatever reason. What about our bodies being absolutely terrible at regulating our internal temperature? Clothing! Our fingernails and teeth are terrible hunting tools, and we're a generally weak creature all around. Weapons! There's a truly amazing show from the late 70s by Robert Burke called Connections that I highly recommend. In the show, he traces the evolution of modern-day man, not just by our inventions, but by the reasons behind them. I think in one episode, he linked, the timing device on a nuclear warhead back to the horse stirrup, but I digress. Our natural state as human beings could be tidily summed up by the phrase, nah, not good enough. And our cultural and technological evolution has reached an absolutely jaw-dropping level in the modern age. I'm not even referring to the 3 forks, 6 spoons, and all the other utensil accoutrements necessary for proving that your ancestors owned slaves, or wedding rings designed to ensure a marriage's success by starting it off with massive debt over an absolutely worthless rock that people died to mine for the De Beers Corporation. I'm not even talking about Tinder, the app that lets you send thousands of women the language equivalent of a dick pic, only to find that sort of behavior actually rewarded. I'm talking about the absolutely ludicrous digital hypermost that we bathe in on a minutely basis, man. Be honest, if you're watching this video on a computer, how many times did you look at your cell phone? That's how easy it is to get bored with how easy life has become these days. Watching a video screen is so boring, we have to have another one going just to cope with it. Bro, I paused the making of this video 3 times just so I could check my damn Twitter, and I got sidetracked because I found a video of a cat I liked on YouTube and then switched to a video where I watched another person play video games for me. Yes, I was watching video while recording a video for YouTube. The circle is now complete. But that's only been normal for, less than 2 decades, thereabouts? And that's only what's normal for us. What about everyone else?